Hey, y'all, it's Rick here with Uncommon Communion and happy spring. I did not get a chance to really underscore that yesterday as I was recording in the morning, literally heading out the door. And I am going to be heading out the door here pretty soon. So I'm going to try to keep this kind of brief. Apologize that I didn't get you a 6 a.m. written one this morning. Last week just kicked my butt, y'all. And I got ready for the evening yesterday, and I just did not have the gas in the tank. I am anticipating a week ahead that is going to be less full. So I am hoping to do some writing this week and also have an entry, hopefully a bit of wisdom, encouragement, inspiration for you at that 6 a.m. Eastern time. Regardless, though, it is spring. And I think this time of year, more than ever, as we pay attention to the shifting in the world around us, we can affirm that we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of the more and each other. So I didn't get much of a chance yesterday to wish a happy spring, and I want to talk a little bit about that today before we get to the psalm, which is a psalm that has appropriate, I think, images for us in this time of year, the time where growing begins again. And first, though, I want to share some wisdom that I got this morning. Just a little while ago, I was talking to a sponsee. It's a friend in a recovery program. And I said to him, I said, happy spring. And I said, I love spring because it's the day on the calendar that is furthest away from winter, right? And he said, yeah, I agree. But then he said something that's gotten me thinking. He said, I kind of am feeling sad that winter is over. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. I says, I love hot tea, and there's, nothing like a cup of hot tea in the wintertime. He says, I love snuggling in blankets and sweaters and, the darkness and what it invites. And I said, that's interesting. And I really kind of pondered that. And I think for me, who is not a fan of winter, what he is saying really helps me to appreciate the nature of us, you and I, and everyone as planetary pilgrims, right? Because all a season is a particular place on this annular journey that we make as a community, as a bunch of earthlings here on our home planet, the only planet we've ever lived on, right? As we make this annular journey around the sun. And a season is just a position as we make that journey. Now, certainly a lot of things change in the season. The most important is the relative sunlight that we get. Of course, the days get longer and the sun gets higher in the sky. It also moves in the northern hemisphere during summer, and in the southern as well. Southern, it would move south, but in the north, it moves further north. And that is, again, a reminder of this journey that we are on. And, I think from my experience, we gain wisdom and ultimately serenity from gratitude in where we find ourselves, right? So again, I find a lot to be grateful for in the spring and the growth and the rebirth. I mean, there's so many things, right? There's also so many things in the winter because each season elicits something new and something different and opportunities, invitations for contemplation and prayer and connection and gratitude, especially gratitude, right? So I'm really grateful for this reflection that he shared with me and what it is allowing me to ponder and in turn to share with you here. One other thing that I came across, and I'm going to share a link to this. I think this is important and very relevant this year. That today is, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it correctly, Nowruz, Nowruz, which is the Persian New Year. So now you may know that the Persian Empire and really Persian culture predates Islam, right? Because the Persian Empire goes way, way back. I mean, it's older, if I'm remembering my history correct. It's actually older than the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire. I think it was the Greeks who predated the Romans who defeated the Persians, right? So this culture goes back a long, long way, right? And it is an Islam, which of course is the religion of many people in um, Iran, which is kind of the heart of the Persian culture, but that wider part of the world, Mesopotamia and so forth, that Islam doesn't come along until I think it's the 500s or the 600s. It's relatively late in the game. So this Persian holiday, Nowruz, which is the Persian New Year, and a really fascinating article. It's like I said, I'll share this with you. That talks about how it's celebrated. The image that I'm going to put for the post today is something that they grow as a symbol and as actually a food to consume during this holiday of this spring rebirth. And there's also 7 symbols. I thought this was really cool that they use 7 S items, they call it. And I'm not going to read them to you, but I will invite you to take a look at that in the article. So needless to say, the article says that, this year in particular, it is with Iran being pummeled and just, really, really just wounded and hurt by, this unjust war that continues. We're in our 4th week. It was 4 weeks ago today, or 3 weeks ago today that it started. It makes it very hard for those folks to celebrate. I want to get to the psalm, though. Today is Psalm 80. I did not mark this when we hit it, but we are more than halfway through this journey. 75 would be the halfway point, 150 Psalms. So we are on the downward slope of the Psalms. And I'm not going to read all of Psalm 80 to you, but there are a few verses that really stuck with me. And it is about the vineyard and grapevines, and an image of God tearing down the grapevines. So, we know that after the period, or really probably when the Psalms were being written, the Hebrews, the Israelites, were in exile in Babylon. And there was a lot of reckoning with like what happened. How did God let at that point it was the Babylonians come in and destroy everything. And this image of the vineyard is a very deep and rich one for the culture. So it says, it was you who cleared the way for the grapevine, your people. They took root deep in the ground, spreading their branches throughout the land. The mountains were covered with the shade of its branches, and it reached above the mighty cedar trees. It sent out stems and branches as far as the river where the sun rises, and it shoots to the great waters of the sea where the sun sets. So God is creating this vineyard of the people and nurturing it. And then, O maker of life, why have you torn down the stone walls of this great vineyard so all who walk by can steal its grapes? Wild boars from the woods rip and tear at its vines, and crawling insects feed on its green leaves. O great spirit, chief of spirit warriors, turn back to us. Look down from the spirit world above and see what is taking place. Take care of your broken vine. So, as I think about my own journey, vineyards were a big part of it. I don't know that I've really shared much of this part of my journey, but right after college for 4 years, I taught in a Catholic high school in Napa. And one of my great joys of that time, it was a very rich, very challenging, very extra time for me. But one of my great joys during that time was walking in a vineyard. One of my students' parents owned a vineyard very close to where I lived, and they gave me permission just to walk through the vines and around the vines. And that was a really powerful spiritual experience, because the vines very much change during the year. As the earth circles the sun and the light and the seasons change, the vines themselves, the grapevines, change. And watching that and being a part of that was really, really powerful. And again, here we see the people crying out, God, what has happened? How has this been destroyed? And I think it's just, again, a lament that I think we find in our own times as well. So I want to close here with some words from Father Ed. I used to, for a while, I was quoting from this book, and maybe I'll go back to it in my posts. But he is talking about the spring equinox, and he says, "This day is both holy and magical, filled with hidden spirits and sounds. May your eyes, ears, and the nose be attentive to the rebirth of green life pushing up through the earth, even if it is still hidden from view." And then he says this, and this is be our closing prayer. He says, "On this spring equinox day," which again, it could be on the 21st or the 20th. This year it was yesterday. "On this spring equinox day, as this new season is birthed from old winter's tomb womb, birth a fresh new spirit in me." All right, y'all. May we experience a fresh new spirit in us. Happy holiday to our Persian friends, our brothers and sisters. Apparently, there's about 300 million in the world, which is a higher number than I thought. But blessing and good to you all. Be bold, be well, hold fast, y'all.